And thank you all. Call to order, 7:34 a.m. First item is administrative approval of minutes. And again, a big thank you to Elizabeth for doing the minutes. Any amendments to the minutes?
No, not for me. I move that we pass it.
Okay, Elizabeth, do you
Okay,
have
I
any
second. Mhm.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, minutes are approved. And next is just to review our overall work schedule, which is broken into 4 blocks there. The first 2 blocks we basically have completed, which is a lot of work. We are still tonight finishing up the voter roll. We reviewed the contract.
Larry is about to arrive. Here he
Oh,
comes.
good.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, Larry, welcome.
Larry, you're here.
Okay, we have all 4 of us plus Arthur, no residents attending this evening. Larry, we just voted to approve the minutes. Unless you have any changes in the minutes, that vote stands. Any changes?
Yeah, I approve.
Okay, good. All right, so then we were in the first, sort of reviewing where we are, and our agenda has those 4 sort of info blocks about our work schedule. And the first 2 are essentially done. The October to December piece is done. The January to March pieces are done, with the exception of we're finishing up the voter roll this week. So that's not quite finished, but the rest of it is. We need to send the voter roll to the mail vote contractor by April 7th. And one nice piece that's ahead of schedule here in our April section there is that Michael told me when I talked to him Monday morning that the staff had managed to mail out our election info packet to all the VMA households as of Friday afternoon. So we actually got that done last week, which is great. That's ahead of schedule. People should be receiving the election info packet, this week, like today or tomorrow. Mine did not come today, but it should be coming. He says he mailed them on Friday. So yay, team. That's checked off. One of the items we have on our agenda tonight is the ballot packet from Eclectic. And what I'd like to do is shift the order of our action items a little bit, because I'd like to do the easy pieces first and hold the voter roll verification task under our action items toward the end. Is there any questions about sort of what tasks we've done and what tasks are in process and still to be done? Any questions for me? Okay. Nomi, it was your suggestion to have that kind of short outline of our tasks in each of our agendas, and I think that was a really good idea. We've done it now in the last several meetings, and I think it's been helpful to several residents said that they thought it was helpful, and I have found it helpful myself. So thank you for that. A good idea. Okay, having no residents present to make comments, we will move straight to the action items, starting with number 2. Again, doing the easier ones first. I sent you guys this afternoon my markup of the main piece of the draft election packet, which is their voter instructions page. And Naomi, I got a nice note from you saying that you thought that they were good edits.
Right, you did. You've cut them essential things. Thank you for doing that.
I didn't think I'd have time, but I did.
Yeah, you did.
And Elizabeth, have you had a chance to look at that packet? Michael sent it to us yesterday, so it's kind of a short turnaround for us on it. I'd asked for it last week, but we got it yesterday, so okay, we have it. All right.
I'm drowning in papers.
Oh, I know that feeling. Oh my goodness, yes. Larry, did you have a chance to look at the packet from Eclectic?
You mean the information packet that we all reviewed together at the last meeting in detail, or online?
There are 2 packets.
Yeah.
One is the election info packet from VMA, which has the candidate statements and
Okay, and that's been mailed out.
That's been mailed out. That's done. Yay. Cross
Right.
that off your to-do list.
Okay.
All right. The other packet is the actual ballot packet.
Yeah.
It includes 2 versions of the ballot, and we'll get to that in a second, and includes the instructions to voters that are included in the ballot packet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we got from Michael yesterday, because he didn't get it from Eclectic, apparently, although we'd asked for it last week, but he finally did get it. And I thank him for following up with Eclectic. He had asked twice, but he got it. So we have it from yesterday, and I had a chance to look at it this afternoon between meetings.
Yeah. Okay, that's just one pager that was sent today.
What I sent was the 1 pager today.
Yeah.
But the other 2 pages of it are the actual ballots. So if you could pull that up on your screen or look at it after the meeting.
Excuse me. Oh, what up?
Pardon me, Larry, say again? I didn't catch it.
Which document of the tons that you sent us do you want me to pull up?
I want you to pull up the packet from Eclectic, the actual ballot packet that is
You
our
mean
Who
the
job
sent-
to review.
The
Who
one
sent
I-
it?
You mean, it says on your subject line, corrections for electric ballot packet? Is that?
That's
the
one piece of it. That's one piece of it. If you go back to your inbox, you will see that Larry, you got, and we all got from Michael yesterday, the
Okay.
ballot packet from Eclectic, the draft ballot packet from Eclectic,
No?
So the letter came from, yeah,
from
Village.
Michael. From Michael, yeah, from the village.
Okay.
Do you want me,
And,
do you want us to open one of the, I see 4 things. that-
yeah, 4 attachments. Are you talking about the third one
That's
there?
it. That's it. The heading on it is election ballot packets for review.
Yeah, but
Came in
which,
from Monday.
what do you want us to open?
All right, open the first one,
What,
which
the PD
is
the
of the first of
PDF.
the 4 attachments, the PDF. All right,
Mm,
everybody got that?
It's coming.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking at it.
Official mail-in ballot, that one.
Right, right.
Mhm.
And you'll see up at the top, it says in the right-hand corner, sort of, precinct VMA 1.
Mhm.
The
Yeah,
reason we have 2 precincts is because we rotate the names of the candidates on the ballot. And so this order, where you have Cowders and then Spencer, is precinct 1. And you'll see one of the other attachments is precinct 2, where the names are rotated, where it's Spencer and then Andrew Cowders. Okay, that's the only difference between precinct 1 and 2. When we have 3 candidates, we have 3 precincts, rotating the names. All right, that's to prevent something called positional bias, which I think you all are familiar with. If not, we can
I-
talk about it.
You know, I think it was that positional bias is how Arthur got elected.
Well, having a name that begins with
Exactly,
A,
that was it. Yep.
back in 2020, one of the mistakes that got made that year, when the committee was not involved in supervising the contractor at all, it was up to, I guess, Niles at the time, was that they didn't rotate the names.
Yeah.
And a number of residents and voters complained that the names weren't rotated that year. The contractor had been instructed to, but of course didn't do it. And Niles didn't follow up to make sure they did it, so it didn't get done. So anyway,
Okay.
since then we have been rotating it, and that's what that precinct is. So
All right.
so
great.
just one question for clarification. That means when they rotate, that when they're sent out, different people receive different versions?
that's right. You might receive the version 1 with Andrew Cowders
Mhm.
first, and Jeffrey might get version 2 with Alexa listed first.
I see, okay,
Okay?
all right.
So they did that right. I am commending Michael and the Eclectic for doing that piece right. All right. And so I look over this page, this one form of the ballot. It looks to me like they did say correctly, if you go down below, vote for a total of 2 people. A write-in counts as a vote. If you vote for more than 2, your ballot will be disqualified. Then they changed the dates correctly. The one change I would make here, right, and we kind of need to vote on it, is if you go down to the box that says the election contractor must receive your complete ballot in the official return envelope no later than 5 p.m. on May 21.
Mhm.
That actually should be 10 a.m. because that's when their post office delivery is 10 a.m. And if something isn't in their PO box by 10 a.m. on the vote counting day, they're not going to get it. The regulations now say that any ballot that is in hand as of the vote counting gets counted. So if somebody did some kind of special delivery to their office address rather than their PO box, or drove to New Jersey and hand delivered it to their office by 5 p.m., the committee would count it, right? If it was in hand, if it was received. But in terms of the post office box that they actually get the mail sent to, the deadline on that is 10 a.m. So I wanted to just mention that to you guys and see if you think we should change 5 p.m. to really, people need to know that it has to be in their mailed PO box by 10 a.m. on May 21st. They don't have till 5, in fact, in practice. What do you guys think?
Well, yeah, I
Wait,
agree with you, but,
But this is must receive your ballot. This is in the office?
Yeah,
I mean,
in their
at the
PO,
election, huh?
no,
In their-
in the mailbox.
in their PO box by 10
Yeah.
a.m.
At the electex. PO
Yeah,
box.
Electex PO Box by 10 a.m.
Uh-huh.
That's actually the practical deadline.
Well,
All
well,
right.
first off, if you, not that I'm being picky here, but if I were gonna do that, then I would underline official return envelope. And then say 10 a.m. because what if they sent it inside of a FedEx and did it that way?
Well, if the official envelope is inside the FedEx packet, Eclectic has instructions to open the FedEx envelope.
But they could do that up until 5 p.m., right?
They could do that if FedEx did a special delivery, but FedEx would only have the address, the voters only have the address of the PO box. So the only way they could FedEx it to Eclectic would be to somehow go online and find an office address for Eclectic.
Mm.
Right?
I'm sure they deliver a lot of crap to electric.
But I'm saying our voters don't have the Eclectic office address. All our voters have is the mailbox address.
I don't see any harm in changing it to 10 a.m.
Right, I agree.
Okay.
10 a.m.
Is there a motion to change 5 p.m. to 10 a.m.?
So moved.
Second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, I will change that to 10 a.m. Okay. On both ballots. Okay, and it's also, I believe, 10 a.m. in the markup I gave you on the voting instructions. That was the only thing.
Now, so what happens now? Okay, never mind.
Larry, yeah,
Yeah,
just, hold up.
Okay.
Okay.
I think the rest of the information on this ballot is correct. Does anybody else have any questions or changes in it?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Is there anything on the second ballot? If you go to the next attachment, all right, or actually, I guess it's the fourth attachment, you'll see that that should say precinct 2 on it.
Yeah.
The second PDF.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. And I'll make the same change there about 10 a.m.
How do we call these? 1 and 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, what I actually have in my packet from Eclectic is 2 versions of Precinct 1 with Andrew first and Alexa Spencer instead of the second version of the ballot. All right. In other words,
Mhm.
both of the PDFs I got sent were the same.
Well, let me see what I've got.
Yeah. Take a look at those 2 PDFs because the second one is supposed to have Spencer first and say Precinct VMA 2 at the top, and it doesn't.
Oh, I can't. This.
well,
Yeah, I'm kind of
well,
flipping back and forth between the 2 PDFs
Well,
on the ballots.
No, it isn't that. It's that there's something interfering with the display. Okay, on mine it's Cotter's first and Spencer second. I don't
On
remember.
hey,
both
Marty,
versions of the ballot. Yeah, go ahead.
Marty,
Yes, go ahead.
No, this is one. It's the same as the first one. It's identical.
wait a
All right,
minute.
so you got the same thing that I did then.
Well,
Yeah,
not
VMA one.
Not necessarily.
All right,
Um,
what do you have, Larry?
All right, so when I look at the email sent from the village manager, I have, one of them says 505 kilobytes. The other one says 491 kilobytes. Do you happen to see that?
I'm looking.
So
505, yeah, 491. I have that difference too. I don't know what
All
that's
right.
about.
if you open the 505, you'll see that it contains VMA
Spencer.
1 and VMA 2.
Ah, VMA 2 is below?
Yes.
Let me go down and see it. There it is.
On
Okay.
the first one we looked at, you're saying?
Yeah, go to the first PDF we looked at. And it turns
Okay.
out that VMA 2 is below VMA 1. They're both in that PDF.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do have both forms. They did do both.
Right.
All right. They just didn't send it to us correctly. But they sent it to us. It's here. It's in the first PDF. Okay, and it looks okay to me. They switched the names correctly on that. And we'll just have to change the 5 p.m. to 10 a.m. like we did on the first version.
Marty,
Yes, sir.
if you have to notify Michael about this, you're going to have to indicate the difference to him. He might make the same mistake.
Yes, indeed, I will do that.
Okay.
Absolutely. Clarity matters. Okay. All right, so both of our ballot formats are in the first PDF, and we've approved them with one change, the 10 a.m. change, okay?
Okay.
All right. Then if you go to the third docs document, which has instructions at the top, that's the version that I pulled down, marked up, and sent my markup to you
Mm-hmm,
that you saw this afternoon.
right. Yeah.
And if anybody has any additional markups on that, now's the time to speak.
I see the changes you made.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 people instead of 3 candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And at the bottom, the last thing under the heading, that means that there'll be a hot link to one of the
No.
election committee page.
No, there won't be a hot link because this is a printed document. This is part of the packet that gets mailed to the voters. So it's just identified as the election committee page of the VMA website.
Uh,
So we can't put links in this.
But you said it's on the page on the website, right? I mean, I know it's been mailed
Yeah.
physically,
Yes,
but
yes. It has not been
if it's on
posted on.
if it's on the website, it's viewable, is it not?
Yes, it will be viewable on the election committee page of the website.
So that will be that
We just can't put a live.
URL will be attached to the words there. I mean, you'll be able to see it if you
No,
click on it.
no, it's just a reference because
Oh.
people would have to go to the BMA website to find it. And there's no way to link it because it's a printed document. So the link doesn't, we can't put a live link in this document.
Oh, all right.
But when we do the announcements, like we did, in the newsletter and all that, and we'll
Mhm.
continue to do in the weekly wrap-ups. and
Okay,
so
got
on,
it. Okay,
We'll
that's
put the
fine.
links in, we'll put the links online, yeah. But
Mhm.
right here, it's just a reference to where to find it. And I specified the election committee page, because that's where it is. It's not under the heading Governance Council Elections, although it could be in both places.
Is it presently there?
Not yet, not yet.
Okay.
I had to put in the live links and I got that done mostly over the weekend, but I need to look at it again before I send it to Michael, the live version, online version to post. So that's not Michael's fault. That's me being busy here with other stuff. But it will be up. I'll do that tomorrow morning. Give him the online version with the live links to post. Okay?
Well.
Okay,
No.
Okay,
no,
do
let's
you-
go
do-
on.
not
Do you
okay.
want
Let's
to
keep
do one
going.
thing? Is on number 6, do you want to put in bold or for those that would rather, just to make it clear, as I've said before on this, that there is a second way of voting in person for those that would rather
All
do
right.
it that way.
So you want to bold the caps letters OR?
Yeah, just to flag it, that it's an optional way of voting, right?
That's true. I can flag that. Okay, it is now flagged on my markup and it's now bolded as well as caps. Right.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
so,
The only other change I made, Larry, go ahead.
so yeah, the thing I'm a little concerned about is, so like tonight, when I went to sign in, I go to my inbox and I don't have any notice of this meeting, which I don't, that's not necessarily a big deal. But normally when you get that notice, that gives you the link to sign up, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay, so of course, what I did is go to the website thing,
Right.
and dumb fool that I am, I went to the calendar. And sure enough, there was our meeting, and I click on that. Oops, no link. Then I go
Boy.
to our election committee site, and what I'm faced with is this long list of historical crap. And then, oops, all the way at the bottom, under agenda, when I open the agenda, it's hidden in the agenda document, the link.
Yes, it's in the agenda that's posted. Yeah, the link.
Okay, now imagine a consumer voter coming to the election committee page and facing that kind of idiocy.
They'd have to go all the way down to the place where the
But
agendas and the
why
packets are
should
listed.
they? Our job is to make this convenient. That was part.
That's
both
part of the state regs. That's true, Larry. You're right about the convenience of the voter being one of our marching orders.
This should be the minute they hit the election committee page during the times of elections, that link should be there for them. They shouldn't have to struggle.
I'm making a note here. I can talk to Michael tomorrow about reorganizing the election committee page so that, as you say, that the documents are not the first thing that pop up, but the section that has the agendas and packets does pop up right
no,
at the top.
Larry, you're saying that you were looking for the meeting
the
link,
link.
the agenda for tonight's meeting?
Yeah.
Well, and you didn't get the
No,
one
it's
that
not
came
that I
from
was
the
looking for the
village.
agenda. I simply wanted the link to sign in.
Yeah, but
And-
it's on the Martin's editions. I mean, it's Michael sends it around, it came out a couple
Yeah.
of times in
Guess
the
what?
weekly wrap up, and then it was today sent by
Oh,
the village manager.
okay,
Yeah.
and I didn't get it.
Larry, I'm sure you did. You just have to check it.
Well, before I told you that, I checked my deleted file, I
No,
checked my inbox, and I checked my VMA inbox.
look, check your junk file.
I did.
So
Yeah.
somehow you didn't get it, but the rest of us did.
That's
It's a
correct,
problem.
but that's neither here nor there.
Yes, it
Ah,
is.
If I were a person, I'm trying to get a hold of the election information packet, and I'm told to go to the election committee page on the website. I don't want them to go through this whole struggle that I did.
I
That's-
take your point, Larry. I take your point, and I will talk to Michael about rearranging that.
Rock and roll school.
Yep.
Okay.
And the other thing I would note is that when I checked our committee page on the website at 6:35 this evening, our packet for this meeting had not yet been posted, and Michael had that since yesterday. Now, again, he has a lot to do,
Yep.
and it's not critical, but the packet should have been posted before the meeting and got sent by the committee before the meeting yesterday, but did not get posted. So we had I don't know, a day and a half to post that and didn't do it, but not a big thing. But again, it's a management issue of making sure that our information gets posted promptly and accurately. And we have a management log that just notes this stuff. But Larry, in terms of rearranging the page, the committee page, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think that the current information should be up front, up top. So let me talk to Michael about that and get back to you all. Meantime, back to the task at hand here, which is the instructions page for this packet that we have to approve so the contractor can begin printing it. I would just point out the other two changes I made, and it was up at the top under item number 1. I inserted the word print the person's first and last name. You see that?
Yep.
The second bullet. Because last year we had somebody who just printed somebody's first name and we didn't know who it was. Writing the word
Mhm.
Maria in does not give us enough information to count it as a write-in vote. So I put in first and last name just to be more specific there. You learn from doing. And then at the bottom, the note that Elizabeth had just pulled up, which is about saying it's on the election committee page of the website, but we can't actually put a link in there. Okay. All right.
All right, so there were 4 changes to the text, or 5, I
Yeah,
guess, should
yeah,
include that one
yeah.
at the bottom.
Yeah,
You want that in the minutes at that level of each of those itemized, Marty?
No, you don't need to know
Okay.
to do that. Just say that we went over
Yeah,
the
and-
revisions
yeah,
of
okay,
the
fine.
instructions page.
All right,
And we need a committee vote to approve the markup that we've just
okay,
discussed.
fine, okay.
Oh, so is there a motion to approve our markup of the instructions page?
I
Somebody-
move.
Okay, second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 4 for 4. All right, so we've approved the packet. The only other thing is the envelopes. If you go back to your original 4 attachments email. All right. And look at the envelope. There's a number 1011, 10 envelope, number 10 size envelope that goes inside the number 11 sample envelope. And the number 10 size is labeled privacy envelope. That looked fine to me. And that's voting privacy mechanism so that the ballots are not just bare inside an envelope, but are inside this internal envelope, the smaller.
Mhm.
This is the outer envelope. And as you can see, it has the voter security number in a box on the lower left, and it has the space for the postal tracking code to go on the lower right. And I checked with Michael, and again, this is secondhand. I did not talk to Electric directly, but Michael says that Electric is ready to rock and roll with the same postal tracking system that we used last year. And again, Larry, I thank you for finding that
Yeah.
postal tracking software because it worked last year and we'll use it again this year.
I'm not able to visualize it because a message says this file does not have an app associated with it for performing this action. So I will take your word for it. I can't see it.
Okay.
I have
Michael
to
sent it. Yeah, Michael sent us earlier the envelopes in a separate email last week.
I know, and I tried to open it then. I had the same response from my computer.
Okay,
So
your
that's why I'm
computer.
saying, I'll just take your word for it.
Yeah.
I have to excuse myself for a minute because Jeffrey's calling. I'll be right back.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth.
Hey, Marty,
Okay. Yes, sir.
you said that there was the tracking code, which I see.
No, what you see on this page that says number 11 envelope sample is the box at the lower left that has the voter security code.
Okay.
All right, the tracking number from, postal tracking is
Yeah.
on a strip of tape that goes on the lower right-hand side that the post office reads. The
Okay,
tracking
but
number in
that's-
the box is for our purposes with Electric.
Okay, but that tape is not here anywhere, right?
No, it does not appear on
Okay.
this.
All right.
Okay. However, I think this envelope looks fine. My only question about the envelope is we have the voter's name and address on the back of the envelope where they have to sign that little affidavit form. If you go down to the next page of this attachment, you'll see the back of the number 11 envelope. Everybody scroll down to that. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Right. So we've got their name and address on the back of the envelope. And what I have seen in the past and think is probably a better idea, but it's up to you guys, is that the name and address on the front of the envelope should say eclectic, right? So that if it's screwed up in some way, it goes back to them. Or it could say election committee Martin's Additions. The name and address of the voter does not need to be filled out on the front of this envelope. The name and address of the voter is on the back of the envelope in the affidavit form. So what should be the return address in the upper left-hand corner of this return envelope?
So when you're talking about the back,
On the back, we have their name and address.
Wait, Marty, wait.
Okay.
This isn't, what happens is when you open the packet, I mean, this signature and all that is not, doesn't go through the mail with people, postal people being able to see it. They don't
Yeah,
see-
it does. This is the outer envelope.
And the signature and the date is something that anyone could see, like looking at the back of a postcard?
Yeah. That's public information.
Hmm.
We don't need to have the date there. The date is not required. It's standard, but it's not required.
And when it says name printed, does that, oh, they are to print it, but
Yeah. Yeah, the voter fills out the back. My point is that the voter does not also need to put their personal address and name on the front.
well, where is this addressed to?
It's
Eclectic.
addressed to Eclectic's P.O. Box,
Okay,
right? So if you go up to the first page of that, the front of the envelope, let me go back up to it. The Eclectic
so
did not
you're
put their
saying-
address in.
you're saying if something went wrong, it would get back to Eclectic faster if we put their name in the upper left.
Correct. Or it could go to the village office, right? If there's a problem, and with the village office should be the return address, perhaps. That's been done in the past.
Oh, well, you
My
know,
question is, what return address do we want to have Eclectic print there?
yeah,
I'm back. What was used last year?
I think that we had VMA as the return address last year, but I couldn't find last year's envelope to be sure of that.
Okay, well, if that worked fine, can we not
Yeah,
suggest that? And then they will know, they'll have a record of it, will they not?
Yeah, and I should be able to find in the file, or Michael should be able to find in the file, although when I asked him, he wasn't sure he'd saved it, but anyway, I think that should be BMA in the return address, but up to you guys.
great. I so move.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 The-
I'm putting here VMA as return address.
That's on envelope 11.
Yep, on the outer envelope, the official return envelope. On the outer return envelope. Like I say, the inner return envelope is a number 10, slightly smaller, and it just says privacy envelope on it. And that looked fine to me. Okay, that now completes our review of the electric packet. I will send the markup and the instructions to Michael tomorrow to forward to Eclectic. Again, a two-step process, but we will assume it gets done. We've already had a request for a couple of early ballots. So the sooner Electric can get the ballot packets ready, the better off we are in terms of meeting those requests. And before we even send out any early ballots, let alone the full-scale mailing, we will get, the four of us will get a test mailing from Eclectic. And so I'll schedule that with Michael tomorrow when I talk to him as well. Okay?
Okay.
So just, homework for me to schedule that with Michael. Okay, anything else on the ballot packet? I think it looks good otherwise, but this is our chance to review it. Going once, going twice.
I'm fine.
Okay, good to go. All right, next easy thing is number 3 on our action items, logistics for the forum on April 22nd. I talked to Michael about that on Friday, and he is thinking that we should do it like we did it last year, where we had the moderators last year. It was Nomi and Jen Bergeron in the VMA office with Michael. Michael was running the Zoom, and we had 2 recordings, and Michael said he'd do that again this year. So we have no fiascos about having the forum not be recorded. That the candidates will have a choice of either being in the office or being on Zoom, whatever they prefer. Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah, that's fine.
Uh-huh.
And that there will be a Zoom chat where residents can send in live questions during the event. And that we, the committee, or at least me as the committee chair, if not all of us, will be able to read that Zoom chat and look at the questions so that Michael won't be the only one to see them. Again, we're trying to separate out this management of the election process from the staff, which should not have its hands involved in things like that. So the chat function will be activated, and at least one member of the committee, at least me, if not all of us, will be able to see questions that come in on the chat. So Nomi, you've agreed to be our moderator again. And Elizabeth, you have somewhat agreed to be the backup. Is that true?
Yes, yes,
Thank you,
yes.
thank you, thank you. If you both could plan to be there. It's set for 7:30. Both of the candidates have agreed to be available. Alexa is actually flying in, I think she said from Boston earlier that day, but says she should be there at 7:30 with no problem. And so I think we're ready to rock and roll on the forum. Is there anything else on the forum that we need to talk about? We've had one question come in so far on the VMA election email from somebody, a resident who asked about what can the council do to make sure we have more candidates in the future? Very straightforward and important question. So one question has come in so far. And Elizabeth, last time you and I talked about this, you had said that perhaps the committee should prepare some questions too, just in case our residents are otherwise occupied, as people really are preoccupied this year with all this going on at the federal and at the international
Yeah.
level. I had no idea how many of our residents worked in international aid and are now jobless, either because they're contractors or because they were AID employees. It's really been
Well,
quite devastating
And
to our
you can
community.
add the 20, well, how many thousand? 25,000 from HHS that'll be
Yeah,
out the door tomorrow.
yeah, it's huge. So there's a huge impact here, and we should not feel personally disappointed
Yeah.
if there's not a lot of resident attention this year, because that's just the reality we're
Yeah.
in.
I actually, thinking about those questions I mean, I think that is a good question, but the lack of people who've nominated themselves. I had this thought that I don't know if this has been discussed at the council, but I've never seen an annual report from the council. And I think that that would be a very, very interesting and useful PR piece to do it and to have it published before we go into this election cycle, so that the voters see what the council does. Because if, in a way, we're asking people to take a leap of, into a dark space without really having unless you've been coming to the meetings regularly, or, reading the website in your spare time, you're not going to know. But a simple PR piece, not a dense one, but one that highlights, summarizes the major accomplishments of the council in the previous year. And I've seen most organizations would do that just out of, justifying expenditures, for example, what they've done. So I intend to propose that at the council meeting, the next one you have, but I'm putting it out there that would make it really, it would be a nice tool for the election committee to have, to inform, the community and especially people who might be interested in running for office, to know exactly what goes on. What do you
Arthur?
think?
It's a great
Comments?
idea.
Yeah, Elizabeth, I encourage you to suggest that. My only, it's not a fear, it's that it'll just go into the same trash that the regular emails, the announcements, notices, and everything else where people. I was struck in our annual survey how many people said, "Why don't we get a regular weekly update on what's going on in the village?"
Well, you
And
have it.
there
And-
is one, and as far as we know, virtually every resident gets at least one. So,
But I'm talking about council business.
well, I
So,
know, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
So if you want to
Pro-
use that, you could use
propose
that,
it.
but have a council corner or something. But even so, maybe the newsletter would be better because it could be more expansive, in a monthly newsletter.
Yeah.
My
But
understanding is that more people do read the newsletter than read the weekly wrap-ups, but it
Huh.
still seems to be a minority of our residents who read either one. And the only other concern is I'm thinking about that, Elizabeth, I think it's a great idea. I mean, I'm all for public accountability and transparency. I mean, that's my middle name here. And Arthur, you're tired of hearing from me about transparency and accountability after all these years. But I do think that the timing of that annual report needs to be thought out because, as in this case, this year we have an incumbent and a non-incumbent running. And so if the council did a really PR puff piece that
Mhm.
sounded like, oh, the council's so wonderful, we did these 83 amazing, stupendous things, that could sound like election bias.
Well, what's the fiscal year?
Fiscal
Maybe it
year
should
ends in June,
all
June
right, so it
30th.
should coincide with there's nothing wrong with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, no, if they did an annual report, if the council did an annual report in June, that'd be great because that's after the election cycle. But
Uh-huh.
would still provide information for voters
Yeah,
going into next year's.
the idea here is so that people get an idea of what's the nature of the work, the commitment, of time, of
Mhm.
responsibility, the nature of the actions that you hear in your agendas and that you deliberate on. And of course, a budget report, I don't even know if that's published, but that could be an appendix to it in a short form. But, just like a company would do, but
Yeah,
it's,
an annual report in June with the
yeah,
budget and all that.
yeah,
They do have a budget report. They did the
yeah.
budget at the last council meeting.
I mean,
And
you
it's a
could get,
line by line.
you could get somebody to write it for you. It doesn't have to even be something, you've got enough money there that you get a professional editor, writer to write it out based on, something Michael could give them on the major outcomes of, what the decisions of the council but something sort of like stories, you know what I mean? What was the implication, right? This was decided and what happened, what was done as a result of that. Spending that 110,000 to hire that water engineer. Okay, what happened? We were keeping our fingers crossed there. We're sorry that last night it was too dark for me to go out in my yard, Art, and see what was happening in the backyard when all that water came down. that would have been a good way to document, get a first idea. So
Well,
I've
it's
just
gonna
put, I
rain in
just put that
daylight.
out, yeah, I just put that out there as, I think there might be a link between that and, and number of candidates, you know what I mean? I think if we do a better job of letting people know what's entailed in the job, like a job description, right?
Uh-huh.
That's
Uh-huh.
another thing, is a job description, which is separate from the annual report. And both are missing, and I think they would both be very useful.
Yep. I mean, we have included a very short one paragraph description
Yeah,
of the
but-
council's responsibility
Yeah,
and, you
that's
know,
too short.
it's too
That's, and
short.
look at the
Yeah.
number of hours our council spends, you know, I mean, it's a huge amount of investment in time, so it's not a small, it's not an insignificant undertaking. And
Right.
so I think it's
True.
worth coming up with both of those things.
And I
Yeah.
also think, you know, we ought to give the council members credit for what they do. Like, for example, this year, the council, if I were writing this up, not that I'm volunteering that at all, but if I were, I would point out that the council has really been proactive in terms of tracking the zoning stuff that has been coming down from the county and in hiring that land use attorney,
Yep.
Michelle
Yep.
Rosenfeld,
Yeah, yeah.
and
mhm.
in sending that letter in a timely fashion to the county
Sure.
council
No,
objecting
all
to
of,
it.
all of
No,
that.
that's huge. That was the biggest thing that they did this year, I think. And it was really important because a lot of villages
Well,
did
there's
that.
also the work on the roads, you know,
Yeah.
the sidewalk stuff is another big infrastructure project
Brookville
that would
Road.
interest everybody. Yeah. So,
Yeah. And again, there's no systematic one-place report of that. So you're absolutely right, Elizabeth.
uh,
And if it comes out in June at the end of the fiscal year, that seems to me appropriate. And also no possible accusations of any election,
right,
you know, bias being introduced, you know, whoopee, the council's
Right.
wonderful, vote for the incumbents. So we don't want that, people to make that kind
Right.
of a conclusion from
Mhm.
it. You know, even if the council is wonderful. So,
right.
yeah.
And it could be that also that each of the committees you know, makes a contribution if they want to include that, the outputs of the various committees that the council has, the Martin's Editions has, that they would each have a
yeah.
short, you know, much shorter report on their
Yeah.
major outcomes. That's,
The election committee has done that on the years when I've been on it.
yeah,
They did not do it in between, but
Right.
there's a really important election committee June report from 2020. Um, and there is also a very good, thorough election committee report from last year. And this committee will do one again this year.
All right, No.
That's part of our job.
Marty,
Okay.
Larry?
Marty,
Yes, go ahead.
I've got to leave it by 9.
Okay, we're gonna-
let's go.
Can
Let's wrap up.
I make a suggestion?
You sure can.
When is the count, Elizabeth, you want to comment about this at the next council meeting, is that right?
I
Next
thought I would,
council
yeah.
meeting is April 17th.
All right. So, if you don't have any problems with it, Elizabeth, maybe you and I could work on,
Sure,
in between.
sure.
That would be
Okay.
one of our, Marty, you were saying we should have assignments.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that would be
Thank you for
one of
putting
them.
that together.
The other thing is, Elizabeth, if you have any problems with your wanting to check in a storm or whatever,
Mhm.
the outside there at night, etc., just give me a call. I'm bored out of my mind, and that's the kind of stuff I love solving. And I got plenty of strong
What-
ones.
What a nice
All right.
offer, Larry.
What I need is a big floodlight so I can see what's going
I
on
got
back
a
there.
big flood. I
Yeah,
got all
right.
kinds of, when you do building inspections, you need a light, so I got
Yeah,
plenty.
yeah.
Okay.
I like to go
Moving
back there
along.
and watch the waterfall come down from my
listen,
neighbor's yard.
If worse
Yep.
comes to worse, I'll just drive Marty's Jeep into your backyard. We'll shine those headlights wherever you want, so.
You got it. You got it. I'm always glad to help. Moving along here, team, because
Okay.
our time is short. The logistics for Election Day on May 6th. Everybody, please mark your calendar now. It's pretty simple. Be out in front of the village office on the sidewalk at our table by 4:30 or 4:45 at the latest, because we have to be there to provide voter services from 5 to 8. And Larry, you as the vice chair and I will need to sign off on the final voter roll because we can add new voters till 8 p.m. on May 6th. And the next day, you and I basically need to sign off on the official voter roll for the year. So that's just a follow-up piece, but all four of us need to be there from
At what
basically
time?
4:45 to 8:15.
Okay.
And I've asked Michael to ask Eclectic, to instruct Eclectic to make sure we have the small secure Dropbox. Eclectic plans to drop it off that afternoon. Their driver will stick around, and we will count the ballot envelopes that we receive and record them. We don't open them at all. We just record them. Last year, a third of the voters in Martin's Additions used that Dropbox, so it's pretty important to our voters in terms of voting access and ease. Anyway, we just at 8:15, 8:05, we count how many envelopes were deposited. We double count them. We put them in a big manila envelope, and we hand them to the driver, who takes that sealed envelope along with the actual box, the drop box, back to New Jersey that night. So we're on duty from 4:45 till 8:15. Okay,
Mhm. All right.
so mark your calendars. Any questions about Election Day? Okay. Michael has promised that we'll have a canopy tent over us if it's raining. Okay.
Okay.
Number 4, timeline for the election committee's notices. Basically, we should plan to do weekly wrap-up notices from here on through Election Day. And we'll do at least 1 or 2 standalones. We'll do at least 1 standalone before the forum, possibly 2. And we'll do another standalone just before May 6th. Right, possibly that Sunday or Monday. Okay, and then regular weekly wrap-ups.
Will
We'll
you
also
repeat?
have it. Go
You're
ahead.
gonna do weekly
Yeah, weekly wrap-up articles and notices. Well, notices in the weekly wrap-ups.
and one
Couple-
more.
2 standalone notices for the forum. At least 1 standalone notice, if not 2, for Election Day on May 6th. And then, of course, an article in the main newsletter as well.
Okay.
So that's what's coming up for us. Plus our regular reports to the council meeting.
Mhm.
And okay, anything else on the schedule for our notices? Questions? All right, now back to the big task tonight, which is the voter roll. And there are 2 parts to this, as you
Well,
guys
I'm
know.
sorry, well, Marty, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just let me double check with you. Did we approve the instructions?
Yes, we had a vote to approve the ballot packet instructions.
Okay,
Page.
I thought, okay. I thought it was slightly different what we approved, but okay.
All right, am I wrong, guys? I thought we had that
No,
vote.
Larry, please
that-
don't slow
that-
down.
That's where we
Uh,
started the meeting
okay.
there on that, right? What to those
Yeah,
4
yeah, we went through
attachments.
that packet. Yeah, we went through
Yeah.
the packet,
Yeah.
all the attachments. Okay,
I
And-
thought we had votes on various parts, but I didn't know. that
Okay.
we
We're on to the next.
entirety.
You mean we have to revote the whole thing as an
No,
item?
no, we don't.
No.
Well, wait
Yeah.
a minute. Andrew Coggers actually objected to something that wasn't done that way before.
what did he say?
Well, you remember that he wouldn't accept Susan Todd's husband. Oh God, Peter wouldn't accept Peter's comment that everyone had approved something because they'd only approved segments of it. Do you remember that?
I do recall that, and if
And I
it
would
will make
like
you
us to
comfortable there,
formally,
we
to
can do a
avoid
formal
that.
vote over the entire packet. Yes.
yeah.
Let's have
and
a motion to approve the eclectic ballot packet as revised by the committee this evening. Will somebody please so move?
I
Move.
move.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay, so I had moved by Nomi and seconded by Larry. All in favor of approving the packet as we amended it tonight, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, 4 to
Aye.
4. So Larry, set your
Okay.
mind at ease.
Thank you.
On to
I
the
do
next thing.
The next thing, which is the biggie tonight. All right, 2 parts to this. The first part, I think, is the easier one, which is accepting new voters. We have had only a handful of residents who are new voters. That is, they're on the green spreadsheet, which is the village office list of residents, but we're not on the voter roll last year, which is the blue half of our working spreadsheet. All right, there were 62 people who were on our village list of current residents, but not on the voter roll last year. Right, we could, as a committee, legally decide to send ballots to all 62. Our job as a committee is to confirm that they are in fact residents, and their presence of their names on the village residence list constitutes sufficient legal standing for us to make that decision tonight. That's the easiest way to do it. A second way to do it is, a handful of them have actually contacted the committee and said, please make sure I'm the voter roll. And I've written back very nice notes. You'll see it in the VMA elections email saying, thanks so much. You're on the voter roll. We're confirming you. But most people have not. Most of these new names on the village list have not, in fact, gotten back to us. So we could, if we wanted to be scrupulous, actually try to call them all and say, do you want to be on the voter roll or not? And have them affirmatively commit that, yes, they want to get a ballot. That's a heck of a lot of work.
Hold
Go ahead,
on.
Elizabeth.
These are new residents.
New residents, we know they're residents because they're on the VMA
Okay.
office list of
Well,
residents.
then aren't they automatically, grandfathered in by virtue of being a resident, or are they still in a question status? I mean, do you have to
Well-
have them actually say, yes, I want to be on the voter roll? I thought everyone would automatically be on the voter roll.
My preference is to automatically put them on the voter roll. Because
I
our job
agree.
as a committee is to confirm that they are residents. And by being on the resident list from the village office, that confirms it in my mind. I don't
Yes,
think we need to go to them individually to have them each confirm it.
No,
So,
I think it's more important to work with the ones that are the discrepancies that up front that are, problematic or,
that's where we should put our limited time.
Yeah.
I think it's
Mhm.
right. But we need to make that as a formal decision tonight, that we have no, that being on the residence list from the office, the current resident list, is sufficient to confirm residency for our purposes, and I believe legally that is correct. That's what
So
our
what
regs say.
does Boris do?
Boris has an incredibly difficult job because he can't just do that. He has to actually have people register to vote on the county or the state level
Right,
before he can add them to a voter roll.
right.
They have to show up and they have to have their ID. And, if somebody was not on the office list and said to us they're a voter, we would do the same thing per our regs. We would say, okay, you're not on the office list. Show me something that, a driver's license or a bank statement showing that you actually are a resident in Martin's Additions. I think I told you the funny story about the guy who ran home and got his mortgage because he just moved in and he didn't have a bank statement, but he had a mortgage that showed he was the new resident. So we added him to the voter roll. An individual can do that, but we as a committee tonight can in fact vote that we will accept and send ballots to everyone of all 62 of the new people who are on the village residence list. That's our call.
I move to do so.
Okay, is there a second? All right, there's a motion on the floor, needs a second
Can you
to,
repeat the motion, please? I'm sorry, I had to step away.
Nomi, repeat the motion?
That we accept all those people who are registered on the vote they're listed in the VMA address list and therefore eligible to vote.
Yes. All right, that's 62 people on the VMA office list that we will send ballots to all of them as new voters. Is there a second for that motion?
Second,
All in favor, please say aye.
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 I agree. Okay, so that makes life easier there. We do not need to call all 62. We will send them all ballots because our job is just to confirm that they're residents, which they have to legally to get a ballot. Now comes the difficult part. I really believe in due process before you remove anybody from the voter roll, and our regs reflect that, and the state, of course, also does that, and the feds also require that. As you asked Larry about what does Boris, our buddy at the county level, do, he has a terrible time removing anybody from the county list because people don't tell him that they've moved. He has no way to find out
Sure.
unless they,
yeah,
and
so am I right? Boris has 820 residents in Martin?
Boris, the county list, which I sent you guys, has 820 residents, many of whom, 200 of whom don't live here.
Mhm.
It's basically useless in terms of any kind of confirmation of who's a resident or not. It's so out of date. And it lists people who moved away years ago. It's poor Boris. He's got close to 500,000 people on his county list, and it's just really so difficult. So we only have roughly 630 voters, right? That's what we've had consistently for years. And you remember that there was some concern 2 years ago, back in 23, when that year's committee said there were 747 voters and couldn't explain or didn't explain where they came from, because it turned out 122 of them were not, in fact, eligible to vote in VMA.
Well,
which was a
maybe they were
very-
using Boris's list.
Well, I think they partly did. We never got a public explanation as to how they came up with their 747 count.
Anyway,
But they said,
you're-
anyway, legally, we're not allowed to send ballots to people who are not residents of the municipality. So the burden on the committee is to find out who's a resident. It's like doing a census
Mhm.
every year.
Mhm.
And Larry and I spent quite a few hours going over the list earlier and came up with 90 people who were on the old voter roll but were not on the current resident list. So those are all people in question. And of those, some of them were like the Cisnas, who we sent their ballots to Brownsville, Texas last year. So they weren't on the village list because they're not currently residing here, but they're still legally residents under the definition. Anyway, so Larry, and again, I commend you, Larry, for your amazing patience, went through the entire blue list, right? If you look at your spreadsheet, our working spreadsheet, the left side in green is the current office list. The blue side in red, the blue side on the right is the voter roll from last year, which was prepared by the professional independent auditor. And you'll see that we sent letters to people marked there, like Greta Farkas is the first one at 3504 Bradley. She's not on the village list as a current resident. She did not respond to the letter that she sent that said respond by March 28th or you may be removed from the voter roll. No response. So legally, what the regs say is that we can vote as a committee to remove her from the voter list for this year. She would not be on the qualified voter list. She would not get a ballot. Same thing if you go to the next highlighted section on the blue list on the right, you have Nick and Rosemary Watson at 3515 Bradley. All right. Not on the village list as current residents and did not respond to the letter. So again, we can vote to not send a ballot to them. Then you have going down.
Excuse me,
further-
Marty,
Yeah.
is there any need to go down the list of names since you and Larry have done that and you've identified who the 90 are? Isn't the question we should decide is, do we just summarily remove these people from the list because they didn't respond to the deadline message that was sent? Or do we do what you had suggested the other night, which was send a postcard this week to them saying because you did not respond, your name is being removed from the voter roll. However, if this was an error, you still can contact us to get back on the roll if you do that before May 6th.
May 6th. Yeah, that's a two-step process, Elizabeth, that you and I talked about.
Yeah.
And it's what the regs specify. And it is, in fact, more thorough than just an arbitrary
Oh.
decision. Now, what we would do in two steps. The first step is tonight we would agree, as a committee, we would vote to remove anybody who did not reply
Right.
from the list of qualified voters. We would put
Okay.
them on a limbo list of unqualified voters, which means they don't get a ballot, but they haven't
Right.
disappeared entirely from the universe.
Right.
So that basically gives us a clean list to send to the contractor on
Yeah.
April 7th. But at the same time, we would, I think, rightfully, if we wanted to be thorough, send a postcard to those people saying that because you did not respond, your name has been
Mhm.
removed. If you believe this was done in error, you have an appeal process and you must get back to us. It wouldn't be by May 6th. They'd have to appeal it in time for us to respond to it. So they
Right.
need to respond by like April, I don't know, 25th or
30th.
something. Yeah, April
Something
30th,
20th.
April 25th,
Okay.
somewhere in there. And we would add their name back in if they then responded, because we
Right.
can add their name up till May 6th. So I like the postcard idea. It's more work, but I think it's also more due
Fair.
process.
Yeah.
Fair. And again, there's a moral and ethical obligation to, the right to vote is sacred. You don't remove it lightly. And
So
I think that our vote tonight would be to remove from the voter roll for this year anyone who did not respond to that letter. And also, as a second part of that same vote, to send a postcard to them noting, as you said,
Yeah.
we have removed you. You have a chance to
Yeah.
appeal if you appeal it this month, April.
Uh-huh. And
Yeah,
and what is in the alternative, just to explain, so you know what we're voting, the alternative of not removing them would be dividing up the list 4 ways and we get on the telephone and we try to call all these people or send them emails or
That's
something?
right. That's
Well-
right. We would need to call more than 80 people.
Well, you know, though, I did call these people and
Oh,
in
you did?
many, well, I didn't.
A lot of them. Larry called a lot of them while he and I were
Okay.
You
working
know,
on this.
I waited, I called the council members at night, at 2 a.m., but all the
No,
rest.
you didn't. No, you didn't.
So,
You're so
in any
bad.
case, the deal is, in many, only 3 people returned my calls. And then we sent them letters as well. I mean, you know, we made it very clear in the voice, you know, the message that was left, that why we were calling and the timing or urgency of their response, and then also sent this letter.
And the letter was clear
Yeah.
too. The letter
Yeah.
was very clear and simple.
and got nothing.
Mhm.
And then none of those letters were returned as not deliverable.
One was returned, not at this address, which is great. That person we call
Mhm.
cross off the counter.
Mhm.
The other thing that we've got is some confirmations like Elizabeth, excuse me, what's her name? Teresa Otero has now died. And so she comes off the list. She doesn't need to get a call. Katie confirmed that death. And
Mhm.
Sal Constabile has died. I went to his funeral, so he comes off the voter roll from last year. There are a number of people like that. And his wife, Mary Ray Constabile, has moved out, so I got that confirmed, so she's off the list. So there, it's not like we would have to call all 90, but we'd
Well,
have to call close to 80.
87.
Yeah, something like that.
83.
Yeah, 83 people got letters, and of those, only a few have responded in any way. A couple responded that yes, they're here. One was the mother of a student, who we think a lot of these names that they're not on the village list are, 18 to 22-year-old students.
Mhm.
And some of them I checked are on the county voter roll, but that doesn't mean that they're residents here, right? The fact that they didn't update their county voter roll registration does not mean that they're residents. So we can't really count on the county list for much in the way of, we can say, good for them for registering as young adults to vote in the county, but that doesn't mean that they live here. And
So-
they could be living in Rockville for all we know.
So Marty, of the ones we sent letters, we got back X number, right? How
Yeah,
many-
4 or 5.
Right, and does that include Tiffany's email?
Yeah, Tiffany has now emailed us back to say that she and her husband are living over in Bethesda and do want ballots. So that's fine. They're on the voter roll. That's one
right.
discrepancy that's
So
resolved.
then we can make a motion about everyone else that has not been resolved, that
Right.
received letters.
Right. Everyone that did not respond to the letters where the situation is still, where their residency has not been resolved,
Okay.
we would vote to remove them from the voter roll this year.
I move that we remove them from the voter roll and send them postcards as Elizabeth suggested.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
Second. I second.
Elizabeth seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nomi, where are you on this?
I'm not approving of that. I really think with abundance of caution, we should send them all a ballot.
What?
Explain that a little bit more. Talk about that more. I understand what you're saying, but
So if they
talk
have
about
not
why.
responded, they could get another reminder. But I think that people can miss their mail, not pay attention to them, and I really don't want to miss on anybody.
You know, I
Well,
think
that
that's
the
really
other,
very nice. Yeah, I like that, but I don't know if it's
well, then you could do this. If you didn't want to make this final, we could just vote to send a reminder that would be a final reminder with another date, and saying after that point, their names would be removed, period. That's it. Then you don't go back a third time. Would that be acceptable?
That would be acceptable. But
As long as we
problem
have
is-
to send something anyway, what were you gonna say, Marty?
I was going to say the problem that we're facing as a committee is that we have to give a voter roll to the contractor
Oh, that's
by
true.
April 7th.
Yeah.
And the question is what names are on that voter roll. And right now, I don't feel comfortable sending them a voter roll that has people that we don't know are residents and that we have actually got reason under the regs to say are not current residents. Because number one, they're not on the current resident list, and number two, they did not respond to the formal official letter, which was very simple and friendly. So now do we have two reasons to say that they are not
Mhm.
current residents? All right.
Hold
One
on,
is
they're
that
not on the current resident list that was just done by the village.
and they're
They went-
not responding to our
Our-
election
yeah.
mail. So that's two good reasons to say they're probably not residents. And legally, I'm not comfortable sending ballots to people that we don't think pretty definitely are residents. We've given people many announcements, the newsletters and the weekly wrap-ups and even the standalone announcement of the candidates mentioned, are you in the voter roll? Get in touch. And I don't think that these people are in a voter roll, Nomi. I really don't. I don't think they're residents. And so I'm not comfortable because legally we have a responsibility not to mail ballots to people who are not municipal residents. So that's where I come down. And
So,
I have the same thing.
Yeah,
I don't like
that's-
excluding anybody, but I'm really worried about sending a whole bunch of ballots to people who are not eligible to
Right.
vote.
I mean, that's the problem, is that we shouldn't be doing that. And, but let me just double check. We sent them more than the letters. We tried to call them. And in most
Correct.
cases, we called somebody about them,
Right.
left messages.
Correct.
They could, if they're living here, etc., they have an opportunity to see the weekly and other notices that have gone out.
Correct.
They're not on the county rolls.
Some of them are on the county roll, but that doesn't mean they're still residents here because the county roll is so out of date.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I
Or they may be living in another jurisdiction in the county, right?
Right.
That's true. And the point is that we are sending them to their, if they're a resident here, we are sending them a legal notice to that residence. And we've made it a postcard so they don't have to look at it and say, it's an envelope, it's maybe spam and ignore it. They actually see it right there immediately. So it's kind of hard for them if they want to vote, if they want to be a registered VMA voter, there it is, right there.
Right, that they need to take some action because otherwise they're removed. Our vote tonight would remove anybody who is not on the current resident list from the office and did not respond to the letters that we sent to 83 people. So they have to meet both those things. If they didn't do either of those things, then I don't think they're a resident. So that's where I come down. Nomi, does that answer some of your concern?
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah.
And the following up with a postcard, which I think is a great idea, is their last chance. They can appeal it. If they think we're wrong, if they do still live here, and as Larry said, they can see it on the postcard. They don't even have to open an envelope. And it says, you have been, removed from the current voter list because you did not respond and you're not on the current list. And if this is wrong, get in touch now. So I think that is above and beyond the call of duty, and I think it really satisfies my own commitment to make sure that we don't remove anybody without full due process and plenty of opportunities. So are we clear? We had Nomi, do you still vote against
I'll
the?
come along. No, I'll come along.
Okay, so our vote is 4-0 to do two things. To vote tonight to remove anybody from the current voter list we send on April 7th to the contractor. Remove those people who are not on the current village resident list and did not respond to the letter we sent them. So
Yeah,
those people are
understand.
removed from the list we send on April 7th. And we will also draft a postcard like tomorrow to send to those people who were removed, notifying them that they have a right to appeal.
Yep.
All right,
Yeah.
everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, I think
Yes.
that's very thorough and very fair and good job, folks. It's more work for us. I will write the postcard tonight and send it around to you guys to mark up. And in the meantime, I will go ahead, probably Larry with your help, putting together the final spreadsheet to send to Electech by
Okay.
April 7th. Okay?
All right.
So I'll be calling on you, Larry, to help me just double check that. thank you guys. That's a big job, you know, and we paid somebody $8,000 last year to do what we've just done to, you know, figure out
Yeah.
what the decision rules are and make legal decisions here.
I haven't sent my bill yet, so
Yeah, me neither. Bill told me I should bill the village hourly for what I normally charge for consulting on my jobs.
I
VMA couldn't afford it. Okay, last thing is any other election issues? Anything else from anybody?
don't think so.
All right
No.
then. Committee assignments. Larry and I will finalize the voter roll. Thank you all for all the work on it and the good thoughts about it, because I want to be just as meticulous as possible about how we do this, because we're setting a model. And Nomi, per your suggestion much earlier, months ago, I am trying to write up a manual of how we do these things so that future committees can do them. And will understand why we decided what we did and why we did what we did. And I think these are good procedures. Arthur, do you want to say anything
But
before
will
we
you,
adjourn?
hold on one second, will you just repeat what you said? You
Oh,
and
I said,
Larry are,
Nomi had asked months and
no,
months
no,
ago
no,
that we
no,
write
you
up a
and
manual.
Larry are gonna do something.
Oh, Larry and I are gonna finalize the voter roll per the committee votes tonight.
All
We'll
right,
take responsibility for the mechanics of getting that spreadsheet cleaned up and sent, ready to go to the contractor by the 7th.
okay.
Okay. And Nomi, I just was
Thank you.
reassuring you that I am trying to write this stuff up step by step as we go through it. Although I'm behind myself on that as well, but it's in process, and I think it's an
And-
excellent idea, in fact, necessary.
And
Larry, do you have something?
the other assignment, one of the other assignments, Elizabeth and I are going to work on something to present, that Elizabeth will present at the council meeting.
Regarding,
Right. Regarding an annual report from the council.
yeah,
Yeah.
and sort of in a position description, something like
Right.
that,
Yeah, job
that
description,
would be
position
job
description.
description.
Yeah.
For a council, a member of the VMA council.
Mm. And I think that is it appropriate within our role, because we are looking at this question that has already come in to us, which is what steps should the council make to make sure that we recruit more council members, to more people to run for the council in the future, with the understanding that people are always busy and people always have, you know, kids and seniors and elders to take care of. I mean, all of that is always true, but it's democracy only works if people step up. So.
Well, I think Elizabeth, the suggestion that what does a council member do is,
Mhm.
I think is, because nobody knows.
Right.
And it varies considerably from a member to member, how much they choose to participate. Remember, Marty,
Right.
at one time we talked about putting together a committee handbook.
Mm-hmm.
I finally did that with the help of a lot of other folks. Actually, Elizabeth chimed in on that, providing some good edits.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a good idea. What people don't know, so having something out there makes it more concrete.
That's
Mhm.
right. That's right. And if you could, you know, in that write-up, Arthur, I'm sort of like giving you, you know, editorial suggestions here, because I think it's a good idea too. To note that there is variation from year to year and month to month and member to member, and that it's you know, but there are key responsibilities, running from simply the operational responsibilities,
Yeah.
like, you know, the street paving and the tree maintenance and all the rest of the stuff, and then of course the construction projects like the Brookville sidewalk, and the budgeting. You know, I mean,
Budgeting and
I tease you that you and I, Arthur, and now Jeffrey Blander are the only three people in the village who actually read all the budget reports and look at all the budget accounting. Uh, but yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of, I think,
And
your
there's planning. I
responsibility.
assume there's planning as
planning
well.
and initiatives, new things that are
Exactly.
coming along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And responsiveness to what the residents have to say.
Mhm.
Like, you know, I mean, just not to lobby out of turn here. This is not official in any way from the election committee, but I really hope we will take a long look at that building code again. I think there are a number of ways we could improve it
Right.
to really benefit us as BMA residents for the next 15, 20 years. So, you know, Arthur, that's something you and I have talked about before. And that's an initiative that would
Right.
be, I think, mentioned in this kind of summary of
And
council
that would,
duty.
was that what you would call normative responsibilities that have
Yeah.
to do with the
Yeah.
regulations, the code, the,
Right, because
right?
they're our legislative branch. The council is a legislative branch of the village
Right,
government.
right. So that's
And
another distinct or discrete set of responsibilities there.
Financial
I mean, that's-
responsibilities, legislative responsibilities,
Right.
responsive to the community responsibilities. I mean, there's a whole range of things in here.
Yeah, and
Um,
I like that idea of communication with the residents, because that's something that could be improved, you know what I mean? It could be strengthened.
Yeah,
But and the other thing is this liaison function, so that you have the liaison to the various committees you've established,
Yeah.
so that you have a council member, who's informed, it feeds back into the council, that kind of a thing. So that takes a lot of extra time too, doesn't it, Arthur? My goodness, you.
And well, it varies by
Mhm.
different times, different,
Yeah.
it varies.
Well, look at you out there walking all over Martin's Additions the other day with
Yeah.
the water people.
Yeah.
We had I think on my odometer, it said it was 4 miles that we
Oh, you
walked.
had mine
Whoa,
said
you guys
2.
had a hike.
Well, mine said 2.1.
All right, maybe that was it.
I
It
did
felt
look at
like
that
4.
after.
It felt like 4.
Well, my commendations to the entire committee, plus you, Arthur, and anybody else who did on that hike, because it's so important. I mean, that is such a huge issue.
Yeah.
And the Somerset folks have some pretty good water regs from what I've looked at, so it's all possible.
Well,
Anyway, guys, I am looking at the
Okay.
clock. It is
Okay.
8:50.
right.
Yeah.
If there is no other business,
I just want to say, Elizabeth, whether it was 4 miles or 2 miles, don't you think that's sort of water under the bridge?
oh, Larry, what are we gonna do with you?
And we
Not
did
that
walk over
day.
the bridge.
Not
Did you
that
go
day,
over
but
the little bridge?
but we did discover that bridge in somebody's backyard, which is absolutely beautiful. It looks
Yeah.
like you're out in the country someplace at
Yeah.
the bottom of
The
what
Raymond
was his?
Street.
Yeah, incredible.
That's Paul Weller's property that has that
Right
nice
next
little
door
bridge in
to
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right,
Yeah, right next
exactly.
door to Paul Weller. Yeah, beautiful little area, and back sort of corner of our neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, team, I think we had a really productive meeting tonight. I thank you all again for plowing through, as Larry said,
Yes.
the endless amounts of paper that we are
Oh,
now in the midst
yes.
of. This is the crunch here. It gets easier once we get the voter roll done. The forum is fun to do. There, we just have to manage getting the questions in, and thank you guys for being the moderators. The election day on May 6th is usually fun and easy. It's a chance to visit with a lot of neighbors, and it looks like hopefully the mechanics of that will all be set up correctly. Again, we have to work through Michael this year, so it's all
Because
secondhand, but let's assume it's
That's
going to go
it's
great.
a joint event, is it not, with the community engagement?
Yeah,
committee, right?
the Community Engagement Committee was asked a few years ago. This goes back to 2010,
Mhm.
probably 2011, to do some kind of community, say, sidewalk celebration on Election Day, because that was the days when we were still doing in-person voting, and
Right.
nobody was voting. We had fewer than 100 voters a lot of years.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And nobody would show up. So Gene Sperling actually had the idea of doing a celebration on
Okay.
the sidewalk to get people to turn out for what was
Right.
then a little 2-hour window, just 2 hours, where people
Uh-huh.
could vote between 5 and 7 or 6 and 8 p.m. I mean, it was
Yeah.
very restrictive voting. It was really unfair to voters. What we do now with the mail vote is much more inclusive. But anyway, nobody would turn out to vote. So Gene did the sidewalk celebration, and the CEC, the engagement committee, works with the staff. And they were inviting like Friends of the Library, and Naomi, I know you're part of that group, the Friends of the Library group. And they invite Pepco to come and all the rest. They make it a nice thing, and the merchants all get involved. Keith Allen works with them to contribute food. I know we'll have free ice cream because Michael promised that. So the village will hire an ice cream truck. That's always a high point. Back in the old days, we used to serve liquor and beer. Gene came up with that. There would be 1 or 2 residents who were in charge of supervising the big ice barrel that had the liquor and the wine and beer in it. But that's not approved of by the county for like having, serving wine and beer in your election is not
Yeah,
great.
I suppose not, right, especially
not-
not on the sidewalk.
Out on the sidewalk, right?
On a
And the
state
adults
road.
supposedly were making sure the teenagers did not come and grab a beer, but of course
Yeah.
they did. I'm sure
Okay.
that did happen. I wasn't supervising the beer, I was supervising the elections. But anyway, it is a nice joint event, and it's no longer there for the same purpose. We don't need to get people to turn out on election day the same way because we do our mail vote ballots. But I think it's really great having the drop box. It does make it easier for people to vote. And like I said, last year, 1/3 of our voters used that drop box. So it's an event that people look at. It involves both parents and kids. It's a nice community event. So yeah, it will be. They have to do. They do all the rest of it. We just need to show up and manage the election table and the electoral parts of it.
Mhm.
So we have an easy job for that. An important one, but relatively simple.
Okay.
Anything
So
else?
Oh.
Elizabeth, I will call you before the forum. We'll,
Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely.
okay,
would like to discuss that in much more detail with you.
okay.
And we'll come up with some questions. That's another follow-up thing, is that Naomi
If we
and I-
need to, let's see how many questions come in from residents.
No, but I
My
mean,
own
yeah,
backup questions in case
Yeah.
residents are just so distracted by what's going on at the feds these days that they don't respond. And
Okay.
always it's a good question to ask, and somebody always asks every year, tell me about what in your background would give you really, skills that would be appropriate for serving on the council. So there's always one background question.
All right.
That's pretty basic. And then, another generic question is, what one thing do you want to accomplish in the next 2 years?
Mhm.
All right, that's a
Oh.
standard question too.
You know,
Larry?
Elizabeth, one of the things that was, the way you described it, running for a council. Well, for some people, that would actually put a hell of a damper on running.
If they knew what the job entailed, they wouldn't come near it.
So here's a good example. One of the ways to promote it is to indicate to people that this is a great opportunity to increase their skill set.
Ah, good point.
Instead of, we need to see a skill set, which is the way that what Marty just said sounds.
Mm-hmm.
We could say, this could help you in the future, learning how to develop your skill set, be involved in important decisions.
Mhm.
You see,
Well, that would be for Marty to put in her propaganda in the,
well, it's
in
not
the
it's
weekly
not-
wrap-ups.
It's not.
It's
not
not
just-
propaganda. I'm just encouraging people to
Yeah,
participate.
Yeah, it's actually not propaganda, because so what happened when I ran and got elected was Gene Sperling. We were coaching soccer. I was the head coach. She was the assistant coach, and she shamed me into. She said, you've been in the village 10 years. It's your time to contribute, and made me
She
feel
can be
guilty.
persuasive, Larry.
Well, one of the things though that happened is that asking her questions while I was there and etc. is I did learn some very good skills of how to do things. And I think that's a good selling point. It's like, yes, it does take up your time, but here you gain some benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important to get more
Okay.
people involved.
I like
Okay.
that. Elizabeth?
Larry, you and I can discuss that more when we get together, okay, on that.
Okey-dokey.
I do need
All
to
right.
go, guys.
I have to
need
go too.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, we need a motion to adjourn. This was a great meeting, guys. You just
I
are the
motion
best.
to adjourn.
Yes,
Second.
seconded, okay.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned
Aye.
at 8:57
Okay, I'm
p.m.
ending the meeting and stopping the recording.
All
Okay,
right.
thank you,
Good
Arthur.
night.
and Thank you for
Good
sending
night,
us the
Arthur.
AI summary
Good night,
too.
everyone.